Hello and a very warm welcome to everybody. I am Shrija Agrawal and you are watching the Hindustan Times Leadership Studio, a coveted club where leaders talk about robust ideas on business and life to inspire the generation next leaders on how to future-proof themselves and emerge anti-fragile. With me is a very special guest today. Please help me welcome Mr. Vivek Varshney of SpeEdLabs. Vivek, thank you for talking to us. It is my sheer pleasure and privilege to be welcoming you at the Hindustan Times Leadership Studio. As you saw, the entire theme for our most coveted platform this year is the New World Economic Order. And rightly so, with the COVID 19 pandemic happening, the entire status quo got changed. Leadership got a new meaning, risk got a new meaning. I want to understand from someone like you who began his venture in 2016 what really has the pandemic meant for you?
Thanks, Shrija, for having me. It's an honor to be part of this interview. So, as you already see, the leaders is speaking about the new world order, and as everyone is believing that the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, everything will be different, and in so many more ways, education as a sector will be impacted because this is the transition point when everyone started from a non-believer of technology to a almost believer and accepting that it is a part of necessity in terms of education. So if we think about it, I will take an example of schooling system.
Sure.
So schooling system for almost a century
Mm-hmm.
has been a single location, fixed curriculum, one size fits all paradigm for almost close to a century. If we look at the evolution of human race, this system has not been the permanent stature, right? So this was just it started in late 1800s and going on up to now. But I think the COVID is going to disrupt it, and multi-location, hybrid, and online, all three part of educations will coexist, will complement each other, and will deliver much better form of education, because now as a society we are like 130 crore population,
Mm-hmm.
almost 20 crore students, and there is no way one size fits all can do justice with the potential of everyone. So I think COVID is going to change so many things, not just the way it is delivered, but more importantly the way it is consumed. And when the students have the flexibility, what I talk about, 3 A's: the access, affordability, and the analytics, right? These are the three things which are possible with the help of technology. COVID has just instilled that sense of confidence that we can embrace this change because it was necessitated by COVID. So in that sense, I think as a founder of an edtech company,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited and looking forward to the next 1 or 2 decades, how the technology will completely transform the utility of education, and technology will play a very crucial role in this.
Thanks for that, Vivek. And I must tell you that when I speak with other edtech entrepreneurs also, they tell me the same thing, that Srija, COVID has proven to be an inflection point for the pickup of edtech space in India. And there are quite a few edtech players. But what we talk about mostly in the conversation is the elephant in the room, Byju's, for instance, which raised a huge round of funding. My question to you really is that in an environment where capital is so benign, so many people are raising funds, do you think that capital itself can be the moat? Perhaps the biggest player has already been chosen. That is number one. And do you really think that edtech is a winner takes all market?
So I will try to answer this question in three parts. First is, as you rightly mentioned, the largest player, Byju's, has been able to raise so much capital that it almost scares so many funds to touch any other new player, right? And that's the reality, because they have a fiduciary duty to return capital to their investors, and they would take that risk in that way that there is a next person who can back them, right? So obviously it has blocked new capital to many new startups temporarily. But if we look at the journey for a decade, I think we are going to build not just decacorns, we will be building $100 billion companies in education space out of India, for India and for the world.
But
So
what gives you this confidence, Vivek?
because if you look at the entire sector, I mean, I just give you the numbers. There are 20 crore students in India going through the schooling system. Even if we leave aside around 8 crore students who don't have the access to the right internet speeds, the devices, the infrastructure, but still more than 10 crore students still need the tech participation. Now, if you look at the real numbers, all the names that you can think of in education space combinedly don't even have 50 lakh students. So that is just barely 5% of the population.
The market opportunity is so huge.
Market opportunity is huge, and everyone will be served. And the second piece of my answer is, what is these bigger players? You took the name of Byju's. I mean, they started with video lectures, right? And without going into the quality and the utility of those lectures, but they were able to sell it very well, right? And their selling proposition attracted a lot of capital, which ensures them to improve obviously the quality to a level which was unmatchable, right? But then they realized that it's not going to help so much, so they moved to a teacher model, then to a two teacher model, then to a hybrid model. So the capital has not helped them define what they want to do exactly, but it has definitely allowed them to experiment in multiple ways, one after other, one after others. And I can say that in 2016, when I raised my first capital from angels, in my investor deck, I had mentioned that the next decade is going to be for hybrid. That time, not even a single competitive exam was online, and I told that not just the competitive exams, even the boards will become online. Okay, and so we think that there is a huge opportunity, and a lot of these players have been able to just solve the level 1 problem, which is enabling a video content or a lecture component. But if you think about education for a student, there are three very important components. One is the lecture, second is the self-study, and third is the assessment or test, right? So the lecture contributes just about 20% of the learning. Self-study contributes about 75% of the learning. And assessment or tests, which happen once a month or once in 2 months or once in a quarter, they contribute just about 5% of the learning. Now, if you look at the value proposition offered by some of these big players, they are focused only on the first component, right? So if you think that a decacons and the multiple unicorns can be built only on the first leg, then imagine if the second piece is cracked, then what can be created?
And you are trying to crack.
SpeEdLabs is purely focused on the second piece. We don't do live classes. We don't provide so much of video lecture content. Our focus is on self-study, analytics, revision, personalized practice, and improvement plan for everyone. So if two of us are practicing the same chapter, you would have different gaps, I will have different gaps, and the question sequence that we should be practicing should be different, because the only constraint that is in our control is time.
That brings me to my next question. You spoke about how Byju's went through various iterations of its product, and because they had capital to experiment, they had that bandwidth. So my question to you is that how did you get your product market fit right? And this is something which startups take a while to get that. You seem to be somebody who's extremely confident of cracking the second piece. You said, Shrija, I will not get the lecture, I'm not getting to the analytics piece. You're very, very focused on the self-learning aspect. What gives you that confidence?
So I'll explain a little bit about my own journey. Okay, I come from a small town in western UP near Mathura. I did my entire schooling in Hindi medium education in state board in UP. Even after that, and also JEE entrance exam I took in Hindi. My first exposure to English-based education was at IIT Kanpur. And obviously first couple of months was a struggle to understand what teachers are telling, but it's a language you pick up slowly. The reason how I could succeed academically, and throughout my education I've been a school topper, cracked the most difficult exam in the country, because I was always focused on the second pace, self-learning, right? So I used to practice daily. I used to make concepts properly and apply them in different questions, and that gives you conceptual clarity as well as confidence. Just attending lectures multiple times, school, tuition, YouTube, Byju's, anything, right? That just solves your 20% of the problem, right? Now, unless you have a smart tool or a smart method which can take care of the second piece, you are not going to excel in the third piece, which is the assessment, right? So I have learned from my own experience that in a short period of time, I used to study well. I used to work with my father's business almost 4 hours a day till 12th. So I always had a limited time.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, what is the smartest way of studying, and that helped me crack JEE, crack CAT to get into IM. Did well everywhere academically. Um, did help me in my job also, and I think that is the way it works. That's the only way it works. I mean, if you talk to any successful student who has cracked any of the top competition, he or she will tell you that it's the practice and self study, and they will rate it even 90% because they don't need 20% of lecturing. Some of it they can just.
So you are basically self-learning for IIT IIM. Is that what the unique positioning that you have taken?
That is what we started with, but I think the thesis is valid for even any curriculum.
Other
Even
areas.
if you think of class 6 or 7th students,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you can't imagine him doing well in academics unless he does practice regularly.
Mm-hmm.
What we are trying to do at SpeEdLabs is to personalize the practice, give the right feedback, give the diagnosis, and give also the improvement plan. And that has delivered success to many students who are using the platform across India. And I think, as I told you, I mean, uh, connecting with your previous question, uh, there's been so much money in EdTech, but if you see the same number in 2030, you will see this was so less, right? Because the change that has to occur is humongous.
But tell me one thing, Vivek. You spoke about the market opportunity, and I'm sure there are many bright entrepreneurs out there who perhaps went through a life cycle like you did and want to take a stab at the edtech space. So, how are you all different? Everybody talks to me that Shrija, technology education is blended so beautifully. And from a distance, most of them look similar to me because they talk the same language. It's technology, consumer experience, we keep customer at the center, we keep the student at the center, it's capital. So how is the differentiation really possible?
So some of these are obviously the typical MBA jargons where we always want to say, and that's always the guiding principle, because any platform that wants to build a meaningful impact has to be student centric, right? But that is the starting point, that is not the ending point, right? You start with the student centric focus, but for that student, what do you want to do? You want to solve piece A, you want to solve piece 2, piece B, or you want to solve piece C, right? Within piece B, there are 5 things. So which piece you want to solve, and which you as an entrepreneur believe is the most important piece, right? Everyone has different, bringing journeys, their own perspectives, their own experiences in life, and they are excited about a particular piece of the entire problem, right? Now this problem is a one dimension. The second dimension is the curriculum and the journeys in the life cycle of students. So are you talking about class 1 to 5, or are you talking about class 6 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
or are you talking about test prep, or you know other things? So these are two dimensions, and within this, if you create the map, you will probably find more than 100 opportunities where a particular company can focus and go deep
Which is
dive.
still untapped.
Which, I mean, most of them are untapped. I mean, if you look at the value proposition of any of these big players, you can very easily bucket them in piece A. Right.
And you come across being somebody as a leader who has extreme clarity on what he's trying to do, and extreme sort of commitment and conviction that I'm very, very singularly focused on what I'm trying to build. So I like that. There's so much clarity.
Thank you.
But tell me how agile you are. Because as a leader, to grow business in this environment where capital is so readily available, you also have to be very, very quick in raising fast rounds of capital.
That's
So
true.
ultimately, you need that. So where are you on that? And do you think that some hugely funded edtech players are posing a challenge in this area?
So the beauty of a startup, for any company, not just for us, is to get that big crack one day, right? And obviously, I am pretty convinced on what I am trying to solve. I am convinced that our product that we have built solves that problem beautifully, and I am convinced that it has helped thousands of students so far. But obviously, we have not been able to raise a big round so far. Uh, partially because I thought we are not ready for it, partially because we were little late in that fundraising because the money was flowing the piece A, and nobody was so much ready to listen a solution for piece B. But I'm very sure that once now piece A is largely solved and they have found a leader, probably the capital will support
And flow into you.
the people who want to solve piece B. And as I said, I mean, it's a long journey. Me and many other co educators, and I mean, I don't like to use word competition, but I'm just saying they are all trying to do the right thing. So all my co-educators sooner or later will find the right capital, and the capital should also be aligned with what we want to do.
So tell me one thing, Vivek. We spoke about leadership, and I want to understand from you that you are yourself accepting that while Srija, I'm very clear, I perhaps could have been more agile in terms of fundraising. Now 2022 is gearing up. If you were to give me your leadership attribute through which you were going to build out this organization, what would that really be? And how much of the learning of the pandemic has contributed to get that thinking?
So I mean, pandemic has been a boon for us, and we scaled up from a few hundred clients and few thousand students to few thousand teachers and a few lakh students, and that journey has been very exciting for us. And talking in terms of leadership, I think it's a joint effort for many of us, including our clients, because in this journey we and our clients are on the same side and the student is on the other side, and both of us are working together to ensure that we deliver best to them, right? So if you look at the numbers, there are more than 2 lakh teachers who teach students after school, right? Now, I mean, again, like one of the market leaders or many of the market leaders are trying to suggest that most of these 2 lakh teachers are not doing the best, right?
Absolutely.
But if you look at the reality, anyone who is a CEO today in small, big or large companies, they have been taught by one of these 2 lakh teachers.
Absolutely.
So to say that these guys are not required and to undermine their service in the society, I don't agree with it. What I agree with it is a time for them to also upgrade. It is time for them to embrace technology and ensure that they deliver the holistic education to their students, not in the sense to compete with some of these guys, but in the sense that it is also their duty to move forward with the time and take the best out of technology.
So I think I would also like to understand from you the entire business model. I mean, how actually you make money and your expansion plans. Where do you go from here? Because you said that Srija's student centricity is the beginning point, and that necessarily cannot be the end. So who pays you for your service?
So for
How
us,
scalable this really is.
Understood. For us right now, we are working with the teachers. The business model is B2B2C, where we give the individual student logins to the teacher. Teacher pays us. In case of schools, school pay us. They distribute the logins to their students as a part of their pedagogy, and in majority of the cases they absorb the cost in their own cost structure rather than passing it on to the students, because we are essentially replacing a little bit of printing material. We are replacing little bit of Xerox copies and a lot of those things, and we are also adding value in terms of feedback, like and not to generalize it, but I'm just on a lighter note. If you go to school and attend a PTM, in many cases when the teacher does not have a right feedback, they say bachcha naughty hai, class mein attention nahi hai. And these are all very generic feedback. Now what do I do, bachcha naughty? I know. I am living with my son or daughter 24 hours. I know naughty hai ya shy hai ya kya hai. Everything I know. So why don't you give me a pinpointed feedback on which as a parent I can work? So you tell me that out of these 6 chapters, these 2 chapters he has either not studied enough or are his weaknesses. So we are also working, but at home why can't you put some extra effort only on these 2 chapters, or even within this chapter he is fine with whole of the chapter except for these two concepts, because he is making repeated mistakes in that, right? Or you tell me that your child doesn't write units
So basically
properly.
making the feedback more pinpointed and more
That
specific.
that is all the meaning of
So
PTM.
teachers pay you for this.
For now, teachers pay us, but
Yeah.
we the product is made for students. There is a B2C lag also. There is about 15% of our revenues come directly from B2C. So students also subscribe to our product and they directly pay to us.
But that's a small portion of now. You want
Right
to scale
now.
that up.
That will scale up naturally, and that is where the capital plays a role. Because acquiring a B2B client is slightly easier because you have to convince one person, and that person is also academically oriented, so he understands your language sooner than a typical parent. A typical parent gets excited with the piece A, okay, beautiful video, and the superstars dancing, and
So it's tough. It's a tough business.
it will
It's
be
a challenging business.
it's a challenge because you are trying to change, bring change, and the first law of Newton is inertia. So anything that you want.
IITian knows it the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a general life experience. I mean, anything you want to change. We are trying to change the most important and most complicated consumption behavior in learning. What we are saying is that don't study from a one size fits all assignment. Study what you need, right? It's a consumption behavior change. It will not happen overnight.
So, if I were to tell you about your challenges and recap them, number one is really about trying to change the behavior of your consumer, the student, from getting them to divert from the piece A to get them to the piece B, which is the self-learning, and to convince the parent on that journey. Number two, fundraise. Fundraise is also and how you have to be more agile in that. And number three, I would say perhaps getting your business more consumer centric from B2B to B2C. And that is what you are thinking on right now, because that is what will give you scale and perhaps the valuation, which is now everybody is looking at that. So my last question, concluding remarks, what has the SG Leadership Summit meant for you in terms of coming here? What are the key valuable insights or takeaways that you have drawn from today's session, or generally speaking?
No, I think this summit has been phenomenal, and my congratulations to you and the entire Hindustan Times team. And I mean, this shows your commitment towards the society to bring the thought leaders from every walk of life at a common platform where they can express their own perspectives, views about past, current, and most importantly, future. And I think I've heard most of the speeches over last 4 days, and I can recall in today's Mr. Home Minister's speech that COVID will be a defining period in the history of human race, just like World War II was, right? And I am completely aligned with that. I think we are living through the most exciting times in human race, which are recorded history, right? And this will change everything. And education will be probably the most impacted sector, and that impact may not be visible in the short term, but the kind of schools you have ever seen and I have ever seen will probably not exist in next 10 years, right?
Absolutely.
The kind of books that we have studied historically since our birth will not exist. The kind of program.
It's interesting that you talked to me about future of education, because I happened to interview Sal Khan and on the future of education, and he had a very interesting view on this entire idea. And he said that, Shrija, future of education is one where I will not be bound by the location. Future of education is one where either if I'm on a holiday also and I want to learn, I want to study, that is applicable to me. It is not applicable, or it is not contingent on the other person. So future of education is one which is extremely fluid, one which is not bound by the context of time and space and location. I wonder, when you talk to the more Indian context, and he also had a message for Byju's, and he said that when the world's richest, Bill Gates' children are learning maths and English at Khan Academy, and when you have a company like that charging such amount, He said in India there's a perception that if something is free, it is not of value. So his message to Baiju Ravindran or Baiju's really was that you can perhaps create the same scale, perhaps in a more impact-oriented way. So my question to you really is that if you were to give me what really is the future of education, what would that really be?
So just, I'll come to your question, but I have tremendous respect for Byju's in the sense that they set out a journey for themselves, and every entrepreneur is driven by their own dreams, and uh, one can have a different view or journeys, but that's perfectly fine. But coming to your question, the future of education, the meaning itself is to ensure that everyone acquires the right knowledge or the right skills or both for surviving or doing better in life. And when I'm just restricting myself to K-12 education.
Yes.
There is a lifelong education also, which is upskilling, continuous learning, professional learning, etc. I'm not getting into that. I'm just sticking to K-12. The purpose of K-12 is to ensure that as a human being, you are ready to build a 40 years journey. And you would agree with me that the 6 teenage years of our life have the biggest impact on our next 45 years of life.
Absolutely.
Right? It is like it has such a disproportionate impact on the life trajectory that in India we don't value it so much. We take it very casually, and at a scale, I mean, with so much population, it is not expected that everyone will be mature to understand the gravity of this impact, right? So our segment is in those crucial teenage years, and if we can build the right habits, skilling cannot be defined, right? You will have different requirements every decade, every 5 years. If your learning habits are right, your fundamentals, the basic concepts are right, you will always have the ability to learn and adapt different things as per the situation. So education to me, the future of education to me is first is not a fixed curriculum. It should be pretty flexible, and it should give the freedom, little bit freedom for the students to express themselves, choose their likings or dislikings, and pursue some of the likings even if they don't make the professional career out of that.
Okay.
It just shapes you as a person. It just shapes your intrinsic personality and character, builds a sense of perseverance, empathy, competitiveness, etc.
Understood.
So it's not just like a fixed curriculum. I think that's what will happen now, if not in next 5 years, but in a much longer horizon. That's what will happen, and
More personalized curriculum.
very personalized. I mean, at SpeEdLabs, our vision is that personalized education is the bridge between dreams and capabilities, and we want to be part of journey for many people's dreams by providing them personalized learning. So
Okay, so let's play some quick rapid fire now.
sure.
If you were to tell me one company in the EdTech space which you admire the most besides yours, what would that be?
It's freedom. Freedom.
EdTech company.
It's a freedom. It's a English teaching app for students between class 1 to 5. Again, not super funded, etc., but impacting so many lives in the right way.
Okay. And what will be your message to EdTech entrepreneurs out there? Simple, one sentence message.
I think look at a 10-year picture and see what impact we are creating.
3 key challenges for you.
First challenge, as you rightly pointed out, is the capital, because without capital, no matter how clear your perspective and endeavor is, it's difficult to execute. That is first challenge. Second challenge is the pressure to achieve those goals in a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year time frame, when the objective itself is to make an impact over a decade. So there is always a constant pressure, internal, external, teams, that why aren't we moving fast? I mean, we started in 2015 and 16 early with the vision that this will happen, and we haven't wavered from our path. and if market and the entire ecosystem is moving in that direction which we predicted, and we just thought that we predicted for a 10-year play. So that pressure of delivering fast. And the third is that building the right team, because in some aspects that is a function of your part A. So if you don't get a big capital, you are sometimes not able to attract some of the best executioners in the sales and marketing department.
So we need to have quick answers. The most overhyped unicorn according to you?
That's a really tough one.
You have to give me a name.
So it's I think my answer will coincide with the answers of many others, which is Byju's. But as I said, it's overhyped in that sense. It is definitely the Byju's. But I think as a person, I admire what they have achieved.
And what's the difference between a boss and a leader?
A boss can be a leader also, by the way, but nevertheless, a boss in a typical sense gives instructions to execute, and typically doesn't expect the subordinates to have too much dissonance or arguments about the instructions or the path that has been chosen. A leader brings everyone together and possibly is the last in the line, and he guides the entire thing from the last goalpost. So I think in my sense, leader is someone who can bring everyone together, understand the differences, and still make the right choice.
Thanks for that. A leader is one who is perhaps last in the line but brings everybody together. On that note, let's wrap up to this beautiful conversation, the New World Economic Order. And thanks for sharing your insights on future of education and how you're building out SpeEdLabs in that direction. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you.
Thanks, Rija. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.